imprisoned for what they have done, just as they would be tried and then presumably imprisoned if they conspired to fix prices. But our governments fail to defend us from these technology conspiracies. In fact, these companies have so little fear that they will ever be punished for their crime that they don't even keep it secret. That's how I know about it. If this were a secret conspiracy, I wouldn't have found out. I'd be the last one to know. But they boast about it because they know that they're safe from our puny governments. Our puny governments are on their side against us. So we need to organize to fight back. If you look at the website defectivebydesign.org, you will find our campaign of protests against digital restrictions management. And we have some of our protests in the street, and we have some of them virtually. So go to the site, sign up, and participate in our protests. We need to make them as big as possible, because the mission here is to show these multinational companies that if they try to attack our freedom with digital restrictions management, they will be hated. We have to teach them a lesson. You have to help. But it gets worse than that. There are also backdoors, the malicious features designed to attack the user. One proprietary program that has a backdoor that you may have heard of is called Microsoft Windows. Starting with Windows XP, Microsoft began determining the user's identity. So when Windows XP asks for an upgrade over the net, Windows can deliver to that user an upgrade designed specifically for him. What does that mean? It means Microsoft can change that person's software however it wishes and basically wipe the floor with him. And the user has no recourse. This is the backdoor we can deduce from the known facts. Are there others? A few years ago, India arrested some of the developers of Windows XP and accused them, of Windows, wasn't XP anymore, I suppose. Developers of Windows, and accused them of working in parallel for Microsoft and for Al-Qaeda, trying to install another backdoor that Microsoft wouldn't know about. Well, that attempt apparently failed. Were there others that succeeded? We can't check. But we know that Microsoft installed a backdoor for the use of another terrorist organization, even more violent, namely the United States government. This was caught in 1999 in a piece of server software. So you can't trust a program without Freedom 1. Those programs demand blind faith from the user. There is no possible basis for rational trust, so blind faith is the only option the user has. Now, with Windows XP, there may be a way to defend against malicious upgrades. We know that if the upgrade facility is activated, then Microsoft can install changes without asking the user. But it might be the case that when the upgrade facility is deactivated completely, that Microsoft can't do that. At least we have no evidence that it can. Of course, deactivating the upgrade facility with Windows could be rather dangerous given how bad security is. But at least it would protect the user against a malicious upgrade. So of course, with Windows Vista, Microsoft eliminated this option. With Windows Vista, Microsoft has the power to forcibly change any software at any time, and the user has no way to block it. Windows Vista is primarily an advance in the technology of subjugating the user. But please don't think that Microsoft is the only company that would do this, that because Microsoft is uniquely evil. That's not true. In fact, Apple has done the same thing with Mac OS X. Apple can forcibly impose changes in software at any time, and the user has no choice. And this, not only that, but it's the same in many kinds of cell phones. There's a company that can forcibly install changes. So to say that Microsoft and Apple can take control of the user's computer is an understatement, because in fact they always have control. From the very first moment of using the computer, that company has control over it. And this shows you where proprietary software naturally leads. Proprietary software is a system of unjust power. Unjust power for the developer over the users. And naturally, they tend to try to use this power to increase their power. And here you see where it ultimately leads. Total power over the user's computer. But no, I won't claim that all the developers of software without Freedom 1 put in malicious features. I suppose there are many of them that don't. But we can't, and I suppose there are many such programs without Freedom 1 that do not have malicious features. But we can't identify them. There's no way to check a program and verify it has no malicious features unless you can get the source code and compile it yourself and run the result. So even though there may be many of these programs without Freedom 1 that do not have malicious features, we can't identify even one of them. But we can make a statement about them. That is, their developers are human, so they make mistakes. And the code of those programs has bugs. And the user of a program without Freedom 1, the freedom to study and change the source code, is just as helpless facing an accidental bug as facing an intentional malicious feature. If you use a program without Freedom 1, you are a prisoner of the software you use. We, the developers of free software, are also human. We also make mistakes. The code of our free programs has bugs too. But if you find a bug in our code, or anything in our code that you don't like, you are free to change it, because we did not make you a prisoner. We can't be perfect. We can respect your freedom. And it's our duty as ethical citizens to respect your freedom. So Freedom 1 is essential, but it's not enough, because that's the freedom to personally study and change the source code. That's not enough, because there are millions of users that don't know how to program, so they are not capable of exercising this freedom directly. But even for programmers like me, Freedom 1 is not enough, because there's so much software in the world today. In fact, there's so much free software today that nobody is capable of personally studying and mastering all the source code to personally make all the changes that she might wish, because this is beyond what one human being can do. So in order to fully control our computing, we need to do it cooperating, working together. And for that we need Freedom 3, the freedom to contribute to your community, the freedom to distribute copies of your modified versions when you wish. This enables us to cooperate. Suppose some people release a free program, and a lot of us like it and use it, but we really wish something would be changed. Well, somebody can start with this program and implement part of those changes and release his modified version. And then someone else can start with that and make more of this change and release her modified version. And then someone can start with that and release more change and finish the job and release his modified version, and then we'll all use that, and we'll thank these people for cooperating to make these changes and make them available to us. Of course, even the users that don't know how to program and can't directly exercise freedoms 1 and 3 can use them, make use of them indirectly. For instance, suppose you use a certain free program and you wish it would be changed. And suppose you use it in your business and you figure that your business would be more profitable if the program worked differently. Then it would be worth it to you to spend some money to get it changed. So you could find a programmer, your choice of programmer, who wants to do the work, and you make a deal with him. So then you give him a copy of your version, the version you're running. This means you exercise your freedom number 2. Then he implements the changes you asked for, exercising his freedom number 1. And then he distributes a copy of that version to you, exercising his freedom number 3. And then, if it works, then you pay him. A lot of the free software business works this way. And so here you can see that users who don't know how to program can still get the benefit, can still take advantage of the 4 freedoms. In fact, all users get the benefit of the 4 freedoms. Every user can exercise freedoms 0 and 2. Freedom 0, the freedom to run the program as you wish, and freedom 2, the freedom to distribute exact copies. Because these don't require programming. Everybody who can use the program knows how to exercise these freedoms. Freedoms 1 and 3 entail programming. The freedom to study and change the source code, and then optionally to distribute copies of your modified version. Any given user can exercise these more or less depending on how much she knows how to program. Of course, there are various levels of knowing how to program. She might learn a lot and become a professional programmer, or she might just learn a little and make easy changes, which is useful. Or she might decide not to learn any programming. A lot of people don't. But when those who are programmers exercise freedoms 1 and 3, and when they publish their modified versions, all of us get to install those modified versions or not, as we wish. So we all get the benefit of living in a society where the users have the 4 freedoms, even if we never make the effort to take advantage of them directly. And thus, freedom 3 is also essential. And what the 4 freedoms together give us is democracy. A free program develops democratically under the control of its users. Because everybody is free to participate, as much or as little as he wishes, in society's decision about the future of this program, which is simply the sum total of all the individual decisions we make about what to do with the program. By contrast, a proprietary program develops under the dictatorship of its developer. This developer is an autocrat. The developer alone decides what the program will do and also decides what it won't do in order to restrict the users. And then the users either accept it and bow down to the developer, or they escape. So, on one hand, we have freedom, social solidarity, and democracy. On the other, we have autocracy. Society must choose free software and reject proprietary software. There is no room for proprietary software in a just society. And the goal of the free software movement is the liberation of cyberspace and all of its inhabitants. I reached these ideas, although not in their present form, in the early 1980s. And in 1983, it was clear to me that I wanted to do something to make it possible to use computers and have freedom. That was impossible in 1983. And the reason is that the computer is useless without an operating system. It won't run at all. You can't do anything with it. And all the operating systems for the modern computers of the day were proprietary. So if you bought a computer, such as a PC or a more powerful computer, the next step was always to get a proprietary operating system, which meant giving up your freedom. So how could I change that? Since I was just one man and only a few people agreed with me, and I wasn't famous and I had no political experience or skill, what could I do? I didn't suppose that starting an ordinary political movement could possibly succeed. So I thought of another way to achieve the same goal, through technical work. You see, there's one thing I knew how to do very well, and that was developing operating system software. And I realized that I could solve this problem just by programming. All I had to do was write another operating system, and then I, as the author, could legally make it free. And then everybody would be able to use computers and have freedom if they used my system. So this was a technical way to correct a social problem. So this meant that I was aware of a grave but rather narrow social problem which was getting wider and in the future would affect a lot of people. And most people did not recognize it as a problem. I had the skills necessary to try to put an end to this problem, and it looked like nobody else would try if not me. That meant I had been elected by circumstances to do the job. It was my duty as a citizen. It's as if you see somebody drowning and you know how to swim and there's no one else around and it's not Bush. Then you have a moral duty to save it. Well, maybe I've said something too strong. Perhaps there are other people, religious fanatics for other religions, about whom I also should not make the claim that you have a duty to save them. But be that as it may, none of that affects me since I don't know how to swim. However, in this case, the job to be done was not swimming, it was software development, and that I was good at. So I decided I would develop a free operating system or die trying. Of old age, that is. Because at the time, the free software movement, which I was founding, had no active enemies. Most people thought it was silly, but they didn't bother to pay more attention. So the obstacle was not opposition, it was a pile of programs that would have to be developed to have a complete free operating system. A big job, and I didn't know if I would ever finish it, but that didn't matter, I had to try. So then I decided to recruit other people to help to get it done sooner. Then I decided to follow the basic design of Unix to make it a portable system, so that even if computers would be different in 5 or 10 years, the system would still be able to run on them. And then I decided to make it Unix compatible, so that all the Unix users would find it easy to switch, and thus the path of the victory of freedom would be smoother. And then I gave it the name GNU, which is a joke. Because I've been part of the hacker community since the 1970s, and being a hacker means you enjoy playful cleverness. Not only with computers, computers, in any area of life you can find ways to be playfully clever. A few hackers were playfully clever breaking security. But that's just a few of them. That's just one of many areas of life where you can be playfully clever. Another hacker programmed our list system to output numbers in Roman numerals, which was amusing just because it was totally useless. So there are so many different ways to be playfully clever, and some of them use computers, and there are others that don't. In any case, part of being a hacker is that you're looking for opportunities to make things funny. So when you're writing a program, even if it does a serious purpose, even if it's your job to write the program, you can still give it a name that's a joke. And we had a specific custom that had to do with the fact that in the 1970s, system software was not portable. So it was very common that you would see a useful program and you'd want to run it, but you couldn't because it was written for a different kind of computer and it wouldn't run on your computer. So all you could do was write another program. Well, this was common in the whole computer field, but in our community, since we like to make things funny, we had a specific custom that you could give your program a name, which was a recursive acronym, which said that your program is not the other one, which is a humorous way of giving credit. So in 1976, I developed the first Emacs text editor, and afterward there were about 30 imitations for other kinds of computers, of course. Those people couldn't run my Emacs program, they had to write another. And some of those programs were called something or other Emacs. Obvious, but not funny. But one of them was called Fine, for Fine is not Emacs. And there was Sign, for Sign is not Emacs. And there was Ina, for Ina is not Emacs. And there was Mince, for Mince is not complete Emacs. And version 2 of Ina was called Zwei, for Zwei was Ina initially. So of course, since I was making a system compatible with Unix, I looked for a recursive acronym name for something is not Unix. But nothing of that form has a meaning in any language I knew. So if it doesn't have another meaning, it's not a joke. What could I do? I thought I could make a contraction and get rid of the I. I could have something's not Unix, blank NU. So I tried every initial. After all, I'm an engineer, systematic about these things. So I tried ANU, BNU, KNU, DNU, ENU, FNU, GNU. Well, GNU is the funniest word in the English language, used in countless wordplays. And the reason is because, according to the dictionary, the G is silent and it's pronounced new. So anytime you want to write the word new, you can spell it GNU and you've got a joke. Maybe not a very good joke, but there are lots of them. So I couldn't resist calling the system GNU. But